click on the ES for Spanish.
En un momento van a ver un icono de un globo al pie de la pantalla y por favor hagan clic donde dice ES para español.
And to hear only the interpreter's voice, click on the blue bar that says Mute Original Audio.
Y para oír solo la voz del intérprete, por favor, oprima la barra azul que dice silenciar audio original.
In addition to our interpreter, Stella, we also have Beatriz providing bilingual meeting support for us.
Y aparte de Estela, nuestra intérprete, también tenemos a Beatriz, que nos está dando apoyo en cuanto a la traducción escrita en el chat.
Well, thank you. I think now you can go over to the translation channel. I want to introduce myself. I'm Matt Westheim, I'm the president of Cabrillo College. Thank you again for being here as part of our name exploration lecture series. We have a real treat tonight. We have students who've won the Peace Awards, the President's Essay and Art Competition Entry Awards, all related to should Cabrillo College change its name. And so another opportunity to see great work by our students. In the chat feature, I've posted an opportunity for you to take a survey, what we call our pre-survey, before you hear the essays and learn about the students' work. Please feel free to go out there and complete it. It takes just one moment. And with that, I'd like to introduce one of our board members, Cristina Cuevas, who has been the chair of the subcommittee for the name exploration process. Go ahead, Cristina.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you all for joining us for the fifth presentation in a series of community events examining the origins and the impact of naming our college after Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo. Before we begin, I want to provide a little background on why we're hosting the name exploration events and what we hope to achieve by engaging you. In July of 2020, the Cabrillo Board of Trustees received a request to rename the college in response to widespread national social unrest, in response to the death of George Floyd, and critical analysis of our namesakes, of our college's namesake. Recognizing the concerns of our faculty, staff, students, and administrators, the board established a process to explore that request. To do this, a subcommittee was created to explore the name of the college and eventually recommend to the full board a proposal as to whether or not the name should be changed. The subcommittee then assembled a task force to create a process for exploring this type of institutional change request. The process includes this series of public events to learn about the history of our namesake, the decision to name the college after him, and how his legacy is affecting the community we serve. The subcommittee has been guided by a commitment to the mission of the college, to research-based decision-making where diverse perspectives are considered, and to engaging campus stakeholders and the larger community in a respectful dialogue. Ultimately, what we learn together through these events, coupled with community feedback, will help us formulate our recommendation regarding the request to change the name of the college. Please note that the board will not be making a final decision on this issue until the fall semester of 2021. There are other community listening sessions that we will schedule later this year to engage with students and the broader community. We invite you now to join in learning more and encourage your comments and questions to this event through the survey that Matt's just described. And now I'll turn it back over to Dr. Matthew Wetstein, the president of Cabrillo College.
Well, thank you, Cristina. Thanks for your leadership too in this name exploration process. It's been a pleasure working with you and Adam Spickler. As we get started tonight, I'm going to do a share screen so that you can see the contours of what we're going to be doing tonight. We have with us, as I said before, some of the winners of our Peace Awards who are going to be highlighted tonight. So featured tonight will be Jan Banales Garcia, REWA Bush, Emily Kessler, EIJI MORI, Diana Ross, and Gabriella Walton, and some of the work that they submitted in the process of this Peace Award. So our agenda tonight is to do a brief introduction about what the awards are, and then actually turn it over and make the spotlight shine on our students who were the award winners. If we have time, we'll have an opportunity for question and answer. And those actually will be an opportunity for either myself or Christina Cuevas to answer any questions folks might have about process as we go forward, more so than questions directly to the students. So let me describe the Peace Awards and also give some gratitude and thanks to the faculty and staff of Cabrillo for promoting this idea and for encouraging students to submit entries to this. The Peace stands for the President's Essay and Art Competition entries. It was announced around the Christmas break, the holiday break, and in January 21, we invited all faculty to announce this to students as an opportunity to turn in essays, stories, blog entries, music, art, whatever format students wanted to work in, and a piece or a writing that related to the controversy over the Cabrillo name. Should Cabrillo College change its name? And so a number of faculty worked with their students to have assignments embedded within their courses during the spring semester. And we had an open competition for those entries to get submitted if students wanted to by April 15th. So just within the last 2 weeks, we've received these, had more than 20 entries from students, a number of essays, poems, and a couple of pieces of art that were submitted by students from Cabrillo College. We had a jury that selected the winners. I was a member of that. We had a couple of art, visual and performing art folks from the college participate, a couple of faculty, a couple of retired faculty who participated as well. So I also want to give thanks to everyone who participated in the selection process. Wonderful entries to choose from. And I also want to give thanks and gratitude to our executive director of the Cabrillo College Foundation, Eileen Hill, for her willingness to identify funding to present $500 awards to each of the winning students. And so the work that you're seeing tonight has been selected for these special awards. And they've, I'm sure they're very grateful for the funding and support. Tonight, you're going to hear from students who submitted these award winners. 3 of them are essays, 2 are poems that were submitted, and there is 1 piece of art that was an entry that was selected for an award as well. And hopefully the students are all here. There may be 1 or 2 where I will read, or I may ask a faculty member to read a work where we know the student cannot be with us tonight. So having said that, our first award winner is Emily Kessler, who submitted the poem titled "In the Palms of Our Hands." And so Emily, I'm going to invite you onto the Zoom stage and let you read your terrific poem.
Hi. Okay. And I'm good to go?
Yes.
Oh. I can't hear you.
Yes, you're good,
Okay,
Emily. Go
I
ahead.
can't hear you, so I'm just going to start reading. Yeah. The ruffling of feathers, the beaten drum, the voices hushed in the night, the glaze of a melted sun. The rivers and mountains burned into the palms of our hands, every little grain ticked out of the hourglass. The waves and sands, every breath fogged up by the morning dew. The roads that have been trekked long before, where are they now? Has the wind taken their stories, adrift on the backs of birds, clung to the fur, sailing away on beads of lead, a bite of flesh done so cold? Where are they now? They live in the fiery soul that beats for our home that should reach for the names that cultivated the dirt we walk on, the names that took the fibers and wove a legacy. a legacy that can't be replaced by flags stained in blood, and that blood has ran through our rivers. Men with metal plates and marching feet is not who we are. We are not conquerors of lives, we are conquerors of truth. We uncover buried treasure, not of gold, but of enriched voices. What have we to show if we cannot bring ourselves to proudly hold up all that we know? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Emily. I took it off share screen, so hopefully you can hear us, and there is a round of applause going around the room. Do you have any words that you wanted to provide to us that sort of inspired you to write the poem that you did?
Yeah, more or less. Well, to be honest, the main reason I wrote this poem was because Dustin McKenzie, my archaeology professor, has really brought the stories of Native American lives kind of into our labs. I'm taking one of his classes for it, and I got a lot, I wouldn't say inspiration, but the background from his classes and his lectures. It brought a lot of context to the topic. So I kind of pulled from that rather than the actual topic of changing our name. I just wanted to kind of, like, this is their culture and this is something that we should be proud of in this area, and we don't really talk a lot about it just in general. So that's kind of where I was going with it.
Great. And so the one question I wanted to ask you too, besides, well, maybe Dusty deserves another call out, but there are any other folks who inspired you as you've been through your studies in Cabrillo that you want to call to our attention and thank?
Well, unfortunately, I did go to Cabrillo right when the pandemic started, so I didn't really get a whole lot of integration with other professors or other students. So I missed out a lot on that, but the anthropology club did get. The original president when I joined, her name was, I believe, McKenna, and so she really, like, her passion for it was really great, and it really made me want to be a part of the club and part of the Native American community that we're trying to give that voice back to. So mostly Dustin McKenzie has given me the most information, and the guest speakers he has brought into our lectures has been phenomenal. So that's who I would want to recognize. Great.
And Emily, just one final question. What are you studying, and then what do you hope to do after Cabrillo?
I am an anthropology and sociology major. I do have a third associate major, a little irrelevant, but yeah, so I'm doing anthropology and sociology, to no surprise. I would like to continue this on to UC Santa Cruz. I did just get accepted to that college, and I'm going to continue on with anthropology. Hopefully I'm going to get my doctorates, and I would like to be a professor as well. So that's the end goal.
Well, it sounds fantastic. Congratulations on getting into UC Santa Cruz. And when you finish that doctorate, I hope you consider teaching at Cabrillo and coming back and paying it forward. Thanks so much for submitting the poem too. So let's go ahead and move to our second entry. And I'm going to go back to share screen again and bring up our next presenter. And this comes from Jan Banales Garcia. And Jan, you now have the stage to read your essay. It's time to stop glorifying colonization.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Jan, and before I start, I would like to give a land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge that we are situated on stolen Amamutsin tribal lands, and I would like to give a big thank you to the Peace Award Committee for selecting me as a candidate to win the Peace Award. And another thank you, I'd like to thank the Puente program and Dr. Adela, because she encourages us as a class to write essays, and she encourages us to submit them to this competition, which, if it wasn't for her, many of us in my class wouldn't have submitted. And so now moving on to the essay. Currently, there is a debate on whether Cabrillo College should change its name due to the fact that Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo was a 17th century European explorer who engaged in violent acts against native peoples. Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo should not be idolized for his symbol of white supremacy and hatred. Over the course of his colonization of native peoples, oftentimes he gave native women and girls to his men as sex slaves. In Guatemala, Cabrillo enslaved many natives, using them to build ships, mine for gold, and gather resources for his own personal gain and wealth. Cabrillo should not be the face of our college after all the horrendous deeds he has done. It is time to stop glorifying colonization and time to honor the natives who suffered and continue to suffer. Cabrillo College needs to change its name because Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo was a cruel sex trafficker and a slave owner. Next paragraph. Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo was involved in sex trafficking and rape, which reflects poorly on the college. Cabrillo was a Spanish explorer who set sail to the Americas in hopes of discovering new land and gaining riches. Upon encountering the native peoples, he broke up families, sending the men to the mines for gold and to the forest to harvest materials he needed for shipbuilding. The women and girls he gave over to soldiers and sailors, presumably as slaves. It is inferred that Cabrillo imprisoned the native women and girls as sex slaves, giving them to his soldiers. He himself fathered several children with the native woman, which was probably the result of a rape. According to Native Park Service, Cabrillo abandoned the native woman and married a Spanish woman. After establishing himself, Cabrillo traveled to Spain in 1532 to marry his business partner's sister, Beatriz Sanchez de Ortega. To me, this shows Cabrillo didn't care about the native woman and just used her for his own sexual pleasure. If we hold on to the Cabrillo College name, what message are we sending? Such barbaric acts of violence and rape are displayed through the name Cabrillo College, which is why it should be changed immediately. Some people like Dr. Ines Engstrand might claim that Cabrillo was a good man and built amazing ships, but this is a racist perspective. According to her, what Cabrillo did was not slavery. Instead, he gave them employment. She also says, he gave natives food, clothes, and shelter. Engstrand truly believes that Cabrillo did good deeds and should be admired. She strongly believes that we shouldn't judge him by today's standards because he was a man of his times. However, Engstrand's views are racist and represent the views of white supremacy because Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo was a cruel slave owner. When settling in America, Cabrillo needed food and resources for him and his men, so he took upon enslaving native peoples. Kelsey Harry supports these claims about Cabrillo when he states indigenous Guatemalans were enslaved by the Spanish and forced to work not only on his farms and mines, but also in his shipyards and on his vessels. People like Dr. Engstrand might claim that Cabrillo employed the natives, but slavery is not employment. By using violence, Cabrillo forced people against their will into working for him, which is morally inhumane. The enslavement of native peoples is a strong reason Cabrillo should change its name. In doing so, the college will honor all of the native peoples who were enslaved and abused under his colonization. On the other hand, some people wish to preserve legacies and monuments, have suggested adding plaques that explain historical facts instead of removing statues or undergoing name changes. This has worked in some cases. According to Zachary Fine, the statue of Lee, like many monuments, does not simply recall the historical figure, but reminds us of the unjust conditions of which it came from. We desperately need our monuments to summon that side of history in the struggle against racial injustice today. Fine explains that educating the community on what Lee did brings up the factual side of history instead of portraying racists and rapists as heroes. Keeping the statue can help educate people. Perhaps the same can be done for Cabrillo College. If the college keeps its name, it should have an informational board on the accurate history of Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, which can summon the darker side of history and give the community a chance to educate themselves on the origin of the name and its backstory. Overall, there is no doubt that Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo was a horrible person, which is why Cabrillo College should change its name. He and his men came to the Americas raping and pillaging native peoples and their lands. Cabrillo was a cruel man who exploited and enslaved native peoples and became rich. He is no hero and should not be treated as one. To have a college named after a person should be a big honor, but in this case, it's the total opposite. Why would Cabrillo College want to keep his name now that we know more about him? Why would Cabrillo College want to live with this kind of shame? I truly hope that the college makes the right decision and chooses a better name. Hopefully one day I will graduate with the name of a college I am truly proud of. All right, thank you.
Well, thank you, Jan, a wonderful essay. And I wanted to just ask you a couple quick questions as we go forward. The essay written for a class here at Cabrillo?
Yes, Dr. Adela, she had us write this as a formal essay for a grade. And then she strongly advised us to also submit this as a peace award. And so I listened to her, I submitted it as a peace award for a little bit of extra credit, and lo and behalf, I won.
Wonderful. And the name that you have, we were talking earlier, sounds familiar to folks who might know a faculty member here at Cabrillo. There is a connection between Victoria Banales and you?
Yes, she is my mother.
Okay, well, she's obviously a very proud faculty mom tonight. And I was joking with you earlier with the award, you have to buy dinner this time for her, right? And tell me really quickly, your hopes and dreams, where are you going next after Cabrillo?
After Cabrillo, hopefully I want to transfer to UC Davis.
Wonderful. And what will you study?
Engineering. I want to become an electrical engineer. Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. That's a lot more math than I would ever want to take. But
oh, yeah.
Congratulations, Jan. Really appreciate that you submitted the entry.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything. I'm going to go back and share screen again. And the Zoom user who came in the room, who can you unmute and let us know who you are there? I want to say, is that Diane?
Yes.
Okay, super. That's great because I think you are up next. So I'm going to share screen and try to get to the next presentation, which is going to be coming right here, if it advances. There you go. So Diane, you submitted this two-dimensional print, and I wonder if you would just spend a few minutes talking about what you did, what you're working with, and the context of the piece of art that you submitted.
Okay, well, I'm signed up in Tobin Keller's Art 33B. So this is my second semester of screen printing. And he suggested the topic that you all have been discussing for some time that truthfully I was unaware of until he mentioned it. And I don't know, I just thought that I would just choose it as a subject. And so here it is.
And the representations that are there, can you kind of walk through what we're seeing and your thinking of presenting it from this perspective?
Well, I did a little bit of research, but certainly I'm not an expert on any of it. But I certainly did learn a lot. And I just thought I would do sort of a picture that might be from the viewpoint of a Native American seeing some ships or whatever. He wouldn't know what they were for the first time, and he's standing, you know, in our redwood trees or from some type of a vantage point, and it's up for the observer to decide what he's thinking, what he's feeling.
Very good. So there's a degree of ambiguity of what might be going through the mind there, right?
Right, because he doesn't know what those quote unquote ships are, what they're going to bring. Are they staying? Are they good? Are they bad? I mean, it's all new like the first moment. I don't believe that he has seen a white person before, so there's no ominous feeling necessarily, but it's whatever, when you view the picture, whatever you think she might be feeling.
Great. And then is there anything behind color choice? Was that related to an assignment that you had for the class, or is that a choice that you made in doing the print colors that you have here and the layers of it?
No, it's the assignment was to use some hand-drawn part to a picture, and you could use a photo. The branches are photographed on the computer with the help of Tobin.
Mm-hmm.
And so he should take some credit for this picture as well. And then I used a paper stencil for some of the background that added a little bit to the picture, the sky or whatever. So it was very difficult to do. It was harder than if I had taken a paintbrush to do. So it's quite a skill that he's still teaching us, and I'm certainly not the best, that's for sure.
Well, great. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see and just ask a couple more questions here of you, Diane. Obviously you're excelling in that class. You must be enjoying it. Is there something you're looking to do after taking these printmaking courses at Cabrillo?
Well, I started many years ago, long before your time at Cabrillo, in preparation for when I was retired. I could do the art that I had to put on the back burner, as a teacher, speech therapist myself. I was very busy, kids, home, school, blah, blah. So here I am after many, many classes that your college offered. I love your college. It's been good to me. My family, my 3 kids have all at some time or another attended. And I have a grandson who's coming up too. So it's really quite something. I'm very glad to get this award, but I was hoping that maybe a student, young student.
Well, you're an enrolled student, so we consider you one, and we're grateful that you are.
Well, I'm a lifelong student, that's for sure. Yeah, so thanks.
Well, it's a great role model to serve, and I like to think of all of us as lifelong learners, and really appreciate your submission into the Peace Awards. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here too. All right, I'm going to share screen again so we can turn to the next submission in our works. This student coming after Diane is a student by the name of Gabriella Walton. And unfortunately, Gabriella could not be with us tonight. So I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to read her terrific essay, which is titled Renaming Cabrillo College. Over the past couple of months, it's been brought to the school's attention that the people of the community are not happy with Cabrillo College's name and want to implement a renaming. However, is there anything more we can do to benefit the college's students? As a society, we've made it known that we do not align with Juan Cabrillo's actions that he did in the past. Having the school named after him is insulting to Indigenous and African-American students and the whole community. For these reasons, Cabrillo College should change its name as soon as possible. Renaming Cabrillo College is a controversial subject. Even though many oppose the name change, we should alter the name and set an example of inclusivity and respect for all people, while also providing opportunities for students to thrive. Many people in the community believe that Cabrillo College should keep its name the way it is. Many say that it's not worth changing the college's name because it will cost upwards of $1 million, which is not worth it. Others point out how by changing the name, history will be forever lost, and are angered by the fact that we would be erasing memories instead of teaching students about Juan Cabrillo's legacy. It is crucial to understand that the best solution is to make sure that everybody in our community feels safe and equal to one another. Changing the name of the college is the first step to making this happen for our community. Not only will changing the school name be beneficial, but Cabrillo College should take it a step further by providing classes and pages on the school's website about who Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo was and how, as a school, we do not align with his actions. This is how history can still be informed, but how the name is erased so that every time we see the school name, we do not have to think back on all the horrible things Juan Cabrillo did. In Not All Racist Monuments Should Be Torn Down, Zachary Fine explains the advantages and disadvantages of eliminating statues and renaming structures and streets that honor white supremacists. Fine notes that removing statues and objects that remind people of a traumatic past will often lead specific communities to neglect or disregard those lessons. Fine explains, however, how overall these statues' demolition will create a more welcoming atmosphere for representatives of oppressed groups. Zachary Fine writes, prominent locations in our city, such as Lee Circle, referring to New Orleans, ought to reflect the unity, diversity, culture, and the wonderful things that bring us together, rather than something in our history that has separated us. This is related to Cabrillo College's remaining because of the community members here in Santa Cruz County do not feel comfortable having such a vile person representing our school. Everybody needs to feel safe and welcomed at Cabrillo College, and if that takes renaming the school, then that is what should happen regardless of what anyone says. During English 2, week 5, students collaborated in familia groups to discuss Cabrillo College's renaming. While not everyone agreed, there were several good ideas shared. Teresa Hurtado-Tyner notes, I personally think it should be changed and represent someone who is a good model to society. And I agree with this statement by her, because I think as we have progressed in society, we no longer agree with the actions Cabrillo made. And in the same familia group, Roya Lowell explains, quote, by keeping the name, the college community will be associated with that name and would be acknowledging that he has done and moving forward what he has done and moving forward in silence. Lowell makes a good point, a great point. And I believe that we no longer should be silent about this topic and bring awareness to implementing a change to the name now. Jorge Arzulas made a strong statement as well, explaining if we change the name, it could leave a mark and help us to show students we can change history. I agree with him. As students, we need to speak up and stand up for what we believe in to change the world. Overall, changing the school's name will prove that ideas can change over time. It will also show that the school staff has listened to Latinx and African-American students' opinions that matter the most. In an article called Should Cabrillo College Change Its Name?, Nick Ibarra delves into the reasoning for the change of the community college's name, as well as the views of those who support it. Marianne Thompson, a resident, addressed the college board, quote, it's time to acknowledge the past and say goodbye to Cabrillo, a conqueror that led to the subjugation of the indigenous people of this land. I strongly agree with what Thompson said. We can always look back at our past, but I do not think we need to keep the name Cabrillo College to be reminded every day of the devastating past. Cabrillo College's Chief of Student Equity and Performance, Kofi Akinjide, addressed college trustees in July about the situation, stating, Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo was a war criminal who systematically profited from the genocide, oppression, and sexual exploitation of indigenous people. I think it's good that Dr. Akinjide brought up Cabrillo's past, because this is the information that we need to consider when choosing a change of the name or not. Jeff Bergamini, a Cabrillo instructor, notes, however, How is a symbolic change, like a name change, supposed to advance anything in terms of material improvements? Bergamini makes an outstanding point, in my opinion. But overall, I think the name change should be adopted. Cabrillo College should go a little further by assisting its students and minority groups. Juan Cabrillo enslaved indigenous and African-American people, committed genocide, and was a bad human in general. Having the school named after him is disrespectful to indigenous and African-American students and the whole community. So what can we do with this situation that's unfolding right now? As community members, we can continue to stand up for what is right and voice our opinions to the school board and tell them why we demand change. We can also think about setting up resources to fund the money for the name change. What if outside sources raised money, did not take any part of the college's budget, and were raised through private donations and fundraising campaigns? These are the thoughts that we must consider when we work to transform the image of Cabrillo College. So again, that's an essay from Gabriella Walton, another student in English 2. And Gabriella sent me a note to extend special thanks as well to Dr. Adela Najarro, her professor. She really appreciates the support that she's gotten from Adela in that class. So thanks to Gabriella, she was also an award winner. The next entry comes from EIJI MORI, who is a former student of Cabrillo and won an honorable mention in the Peace Awards for this submission. It is a poem that is titled A Letter of Gratitude to Cabrillo College. And I want to stop just briefly and make sure that EIJI is not in the room. Kristen, maybe you can tell me if they've joined or not. And if not, I'll go ahead and read EIJI's poem.
I don't see EIJI in the room.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to read the poem and advance the screen as we go forward. A Letter of Gratitude. Cabrillo College, she welcomed me. She guided me, she supported me. She helped me open every door that I've walked through. Since I first walked through her doors, Cabrillo College is a she because she nurtured me and helped me grow just like my mother. I do not hate you for your name. To me, Cabrillo is the place that cared for me as a toddler when my mother was working hard to pursue an education and to open new possibilities. Cabrillo is the place that provided me my first taste of how magical education could be. When my high school was failing me, Cabrillo is the place that provides support and sanctuary for dreamers. Cabrillo is the place that helps send me and my friends to our dream universities and careers. When I call your name, I do not, when I call your name, I do not call upon those whose purpose was to destroy culture and knowledge. I do not call upon those who replace compassion and intrigue with terror and dogma. You provide a beacon of hope for those who do not have the blessing of coming from wealth and status. You provide resources for those who have none. Within your embrace, I have met the souls of beautiful people, people who helped guide me, people who helped guide my mother, people who helped guide my friends, people who helped guide the undocumented, who helped guide the unafraid. They cared for me like they were my family, because we are, in fact, one family here. And as a true family, we can only hope to raise each other up beyond the reaches of the pain that haunts us. Although I now love you as Cabrillo College, the most humble and most empowering educational center that I have ever attended, I know that times will change. And perhaps I will know you by a different name, a name that will have a profound effect on the community I love. But a name will never change the impact you had on my life, the lives of the students who have been blessed with your gift of knowledge, nor the lives of those who have had the honor of serving in your mission. Thank you. So again, a poem from EIJI MORI, who has gone on from Cabrillo College to University of California, San Diego, and submitted that entry from UCSD into the Peace Awards. So our final student,
Matt,
who is, yes, go
if I
ahead.
may, AG was in the room as AG, and
Oh.
he is here. So
Oh, wonderful. Great. I would
go
love
ahead
to.
and promote him to panelist. One moment.
Wonderful. There you are, AG. Are you able to hear me?
Hello there. Can you?
We can hear you. Thanks for
Oh,
being here tonight. Wonderful.
sorry about that.
No worries.
I'm not sure if you'll be able to see me, but yes, thank you so much for the award, and or for the honorable mention in the selection, and it just Cabrillo means a lot to me, and I really appreciate being able to be part of the discussion here, and yeah,
And
I think.
AJ, if I can ask you a couple of questions. So I think you've moved on from Cabrillo, and I want to say that you're at UC San Diego. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
I am at Cabrillo again, actually. I did transfer to UC San Diego, graduated with a bachelor's in chemistry, and now I'm back at Cabrillo, working as a student worker and actually pursuing theater arts and photography. So
wonderful.
Okay. Yeah.
Good to know. And you also submitted an essay. We, as an awards committee, we struggled because we had two different submissions from you. And I have to say that I think we were all struck by the gratitude of your poem. Are there any particular professors or staff that you'd call out and want to say thank you to?
Just about all of them. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that would be tough on me. Definitely thank you to my current photography professor, Leslie Loudon, for informing me about the awards in the first place, and to all of my professors here at Cabrillo. I think, like you said, my poem was definitely about gratitude, and I've really just had nothing but great experiences with my professors. So it was an honor to go to. It was an honor to attend. It's an honor to work here as a tutor, and continue to pursue arts. Yeah.
Well, thank you, AG. Really appreciate it. A beautiful poem, and thanks for being here tonight as well. Sorry we didn't know you were there under AG. So thanks again for submitting.
No worries. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Thank you.
No, that's fine. All right, let me shift then to our final entry and bring that back onto the screen, which is going to be from REWA Bush. And REWA, I'm going to turn the spotlight over to you to read your essay titled Bringing Cabrillo Out of the Closet.
Thank you so much, Matt. Hi, everyone. My name is REWA. I use she, her pronouns. It is a really beautiful day to be alive here on ancestral Weepy territory. And I just want to start out by acknowledging and giving gratitude to the traditional land stewards of this place, both past and present, especially the Amamutsan Land Trust and Amamutsan Tribal Band, who continue to be exemplary role models of how to be in right relationship with the land that we're on. I am an environmental educator and also an astronomy student at Cabrillo. So here's my essay. I sit down in a back corner of the Cabrillo College Library to do my class readings. This week, we're reading about the context of colonization in the United States. The desks around me are vacant, but even in the surrounding silence, I have the feeling that I'm not alone. That is when I look up and, startled, notice an enormous metal bust on the wall across from me. His larger-than-life eyes are gazing past me at something I cannot see. The plaque below reads, quote, João Rodrigues Cabrillo, Portuguese navigator, who, under the flag of Spain, discovered the coast of California in the year of 1542, end quote. For the first time since enrolling at Cabrillo College, I suddenly become aware that this school is named after a colonizer. I grew up on the Central California coast, but I had no idea who Cabrillo was until this moment. The word discovered has long been used as a euphemism that obscures what early colonial explorers were doing. They were scouting land hitherto unvisited by Europeans in search of resources that could be exploited and populations that could be enslaved or expelled. In contrast to that euphemistic language commonly found in texts referencing Native Americans, I'm struck instead by C.R. Smith's use of language in my first class reading called Introduction to California's Native People. Smith aptly refers to the arrival of gold rush miners and speculators in California as the, quote, American occupation, end quote, because embedded within this name is the reality that colonists do not arrive at terra nullis, but rather were occupying inhabited land. Some quick research shows me that Cabrillo was the first European to reach the coast of what is now California. In addition to opening up California for future occupation and exploitation, Cabrillo also assisted in the occupation of Cuba in 1518 and amassed a fortune in Honduras by exploiting indigenous Hondurans as slaves and gold miners. My gut lurches to realize that I have chosen to attend an institution named after this historic figure. That an institution could be so blatantly complicit in the erasure of the genocide of indigenous Californians is unsurprising to me. The erasure is commonplace in the United States, seen in appropriative sports team mascots and the existence of holidays like Columbus Day and Thanksgiving. But even though it is unsurprising, I'm still deeply disappointed and disturbed, especially for an institution of higher education that aims to be fostering critical thinkers and a more just world. Cabrillo's unblinking bust continues to stare over my head as I make my way through my class readings, and I get to wondering, is this bust tucked away in the back corner of the library because the college is hiding its history? Or because it is aware of the outrage and critique that might be stirred up if students became aware of the origins of the school's name? Or perhaps everyone already knows and doesn't care. This is my first semester at Cabrillo College, so I'm not aware if there's been past advocacy work done by students, faculty, or staff to make visible the violent background of the school's namesake. Has anyone advocated for changing the college's name before? Perhaps we could recognize an individual whose values more accurately embody the mission statement of the school, which is to improve the world by empowering students to become responsible world citizens. In addition, has anyone ever suggested foregrounding the bust in a visible location and accompanying it with accurate information about Cabrillo and his impact on Native communities in California and Central America, so that we can grapple with California history with clear eyes? For all who reside in California, aside from Native Californians, our existence here is the result of the colonization and genocide that shaped this state. And the quality of our lives today continues to be informed by the ways that colonization and racism have favored or harmed different populations over time. Many displacements and diasporas have brought each of us to where we stand today. We should not uncritically memorialize these histories nor sweep them away, but rather reckon with them in a way that challenges us and changes us, as suggested by Lewis Owens in Multicultural Tourism, my next class reading. Owens proposes an analogy in which a classroom can be viewed as either a territory or a frontier. Territories have historically been used to control Native American communities by removing them from their homelands to quarantined locations where they could be contained and rendered politically powerless. In a class such as this one, where we are reading works by Indigenous authors, Owens says that students can easily exhibit what he calls literary multicultural tourism if they merely take a brief visit to Indian territory and return unchanged to their former lives to tell an exotic tale. On the other hand, the frontier was the zone of contact, where Euro-American colonizers were first encountering Native Americans. The frontier space was highly contested, and as Owen explains, multi-directional, uncontained, and unstable. On the frontier, he says, hegemony is not acknowledged, meaning that the nationalist meta-narrative is no longer taken for granted, and assumptions are quickly confronted and disrupted on both sides. Owens incites teachers and writers to treat encounters with Native American history and literature like a frontier in order to, quote, disrupt the discourse of dominance, to challenge and discomfit the reader, and to ultimately startle the reader into real knowledge. Owens explains how an encounter with the unknown can destabilize assumptions and bring up discomfort, which is necessary in the process of true learning and acquiring critical thinking. Is Cabrillo's corner of the library treated as a territory where unsavory stories are relegated in hopes that they disappear? Or can I engage with it like a frontier and use the bust as a catalyst? I continue reading through my course packet, and the more that I read, the more I find myself talking back to the bust. And the more I find my sense of Californian identity destabilized as I really look at my complicity in the erasure of the violence of the occupation of this land. The naming of Cabrillo College after a 16th century European colonizer is an example of what Christos describes in her poem Winter Count. She says, "The names of those who murdered us are remembered in towns, islands, bays, rivers, mountains, prairies, forests." Another poet, Dina Metzger, pulls apart the many reasons why stories such as that of Cabrillo must be told. Stories untold fester, she writes, because experiences that are denied recognition by wider society can result in the perpetuation of discrimination rooted in ignorance. Metzger continues, stories told heal the heart, stories witnessed create community. Telling stories can affirm the value and truth of those experiences and honor and heal the experiences of the teller, because the teller is no longer alone or invisible. This sharing of experience can create the possibility of solidarity as the listener's hearts beat alongside the storyteller. Metzger ends with the ultimate result. Stories heard become wisdom. Perhaps she's pointing to the distinction between passive and active listening, a distinction which can make a profound difference. In the body of a true listener, sound waves are not merely bouncing across eardrums, but the brain is soaking in new information and the heart is processing its meaning. A listener who has truly heard a story will internalize the teller's experience and be changed by it. This is the same wish that Owens shares when he warns us against literary tourism and implores us to face the frontier and listen well. This is also the prayer that my instructor, Stan Rushworth, tenderly extends for our class in his prayer Daybreak, when he invites his ancestors to bring us knowledge, wisdom, and good dreams that will be held in our hearts forever. The first time I heard his opening prayer, its tenderness brought me to tears, because in the face of my ignorance, the violent actions of my ancestors, and my complicity in a culture that continues to perpetuate white supremacy, this prayer extends love and responsibility. Anyone raised in the public school system in the United States has received an impoverished education, in the sense that nationalistic bias has obscured learning about the genocide that lies at the root of this country. As a result, when it comes to our education level regarding United States history, many of us are still sleeping children. This prayer places no blame or fault on us for this, but instead extends the generous intention that we be open to being touched and changed, and that our growth continue on long after this semester. I too intend to listen deeply and bravely with a willingness to be discomforted, challenged, and changed. This is what I consider a true education, the kind of education I want from my college. Inviting Cabrillo's statue out of the closet and into common campus discourse will enable all of us to become aware of the honest legacy of our college's namesake, to reckon personally with what it means to live and learn on occupied land, and in that light, decide how to act on our common goal of making the world a better place. Actions begin with listening, recognition of past harm, and setting new intentions together of how we intend to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rewa. I think I can speak for all of the judges who participated in this process, and really for all the students. It's an essay that stands out. And I was struck, I wanted to just touch with you a couple of themes in your essay. One is that, as you indicated, it was written well before we announced the Peace Awards and this name change controversy. So I wonder if you could just comment briefly on in your mind, how interesting it is to you that 2 years ago you were having these thoughts around this bust of Cabrillo that was in the library, and now it's so front and center in what we're talking about.
Right. As you mentioned, this essay was written in fall 2019, during my first few weeks as a student at Cabrillo. I've now been here for 2 years. And it was really thanks to the Native American poetry and prose class that I was taking with Professor Stan Rushworth, who fosters the most amazing learning community in his class and really brings texts off the page and into your life and into your heart in a way that makes you grapple with them wherever you go, even sitting in the back corner of the library reading. And at the time I was like, has anyone ever thought about this? Because I'm disturbed, I'm upset. And I figured people probably have been thinking about this for many years, and there've probably been past student, faculty, and staff advocates who have brought it up. And it wasn't until the moment was right on a national scale that kind of things were ripe for this to be moved forward. And I'm just so impressed with how the college has taken this controversy on, and instead of trying to push it away or deal with it quietly, has made it a campus-wide conversation where we all get to have a learning experience. That's exactly what I wanted when I said we should take Cabrillo out of the closet and put him front and center and talk about this. And that's exactly what you all are doing. So I'm really grateful for that.
Well, thank you. I think we're grateful too for you bringing it forward. Your essay is terrific. There's one other theme I wanted to address. The use of I think it was Dina Metzger, and the words from her suggesting, and I'm going to quote from your essay, stories witnessed create community, and then later stories heard become wisdom. And I'm struck by how well that in some ways parallels with what we're trying to do in this, that if the stories are brought forward and we do talk them through, and we do witness these kinds of events, that we do end up with some wisdom around these kinds of issues. I don't know if you want to make any additional comments about that, but it struck me as a really wise use of Metzger. And it also struck me how well it paralleled Sandy's talk a couple of weeks ago about the bust. And here we are, you talking about the bust as well.
Right, exactly. Often people kind of talk about the erasure of this history. And of course, it's not erased because it is very real and it's still a lived experience, especially for our Native American peers and students and faculty. But in a common kind of meta narrative, it can be erased. It can be something that we don't talk about. We can all know the name Cabrillo College, and to most of us, it doesn't even occur who he is and what that means. And so by bringing those stories to light, it is a huge education process for all of us revealing this history that we really don't acknowledge on a daily basis, but still impacts all of our lives. And I think this has been a really wonderful opportunity to hear from so many speakers and so many students about what this represents to them, how it impacts their lives today, and how we envision what we want our school to represent, what we represent. So listening to all of those voices is a part of that healing and a part of that learning.
Terrific. REWA, I know that we've talked before, but I wonder if you would share again, you mentioned astronomy earlier and what your ambitions are for after Cabrillo.
Absolutely. I've been on a long educational journey, but I actually just landed my first astrophysics research fellowship this summer over at UCSC. And I hope in the coming year or two to be transferring to a 4-year school to get a bachelor's in astrophysics. And I would love to go on to graduate school in astrophysics and cosmology. And I hope to do, to especially be doing work in equity in STEM and in research ethics, and how can we make sure that we're doing scientific research by, with, and for impacted communities, especially Indigenous communities who bear the brunt of environmental racism, and as sovereign people rather than at their expense. So I hope to both get to do cool astronomy and do it in a way that is good for people on this planet and good for the planet.
Well, wonderful. It sounds like you're going to have a terrific career doing that. We wish you the best and congratulations on the Peace Award. I want to say congratulations actually to all of the students. You've gotten another indication of how our students shine. So thank you all to all of the winners. I'd like to, at this point, invite Kristen, perhaps you and I, if there are any Q&A issues in the Q&A box that I could address or Cristina Cuevas could address. Why don't we go ahead and turn to that? I don't know if there are any.
There are no questions at present, but I would invite the attendees, if you have a question, to please place it in the Q&A.
Wonderful. And while you're doing that, I want to remind folks that we have a final closing event scheduled for next Tuesday night, May 4th. Dr. Andres Resendiz, a terrific historian from UC Davis, will be here to present on his book, The Other Slavery, analyzing the impact of colonial empires on indigenous native communities here in North America. It is a National Book Award finalist and received the Bancroft Prize in History from Columbia University. It's a wonderful book, and he will be here with us 6 o'clock Tuesday night for our final event in this series. I'm really looking forward to that. Any other questions show up?
No. Shout out to AG from Leslie Loudon. Love
Very
his
good.
work.
Thanks, Leslie. And if not, I will take the liberty to just do a little bit of a closure to tonight's event. A reminder that after we've done all of these educational forums with the event next week with Andres Resendiz, the board subcommittee will be doing some work over the summer. We will be holding some community listening sessions and plan to do that after the summer months or perhaps late summer into the next semester. And as Trustee Cuevas indicated earlier, a recommendation on this will not be made until the fall semester of 2021. So there's still more to come, more conversation, more learning, more listening, and then finally a recommendation to the board later in the year. The final thing I just want to conclude again by saying thank you so much to our students, to Jan, to REWA, to Diane, AG, Gabriella, to Emily, just wonderful submissions. We're so honored to have given you these awards and so grateful you're students here at Cabrillo. Thank you everybody for attending and have a good night. Thank you, REWA, Jan, AG, thank you so much. Diane, I think she might have left already. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I was late and didn't know how to unmute myself.
No worries, AG. See you. Thank you, Stella. Thank you.